Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jasen Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy with Jasen. Today I have a very special guest. I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Mr. Jasen Rice with me.
With an E.
With an E, yes.
With an E. We're a little different. We're the same,
just
but
a
a
little.
different.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jasen podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jasen Harris.
Jasen, thanks for taking the time to chat with me, man.
Thanks for having me.
This
cool.
is going to be fun. Hey, for everybody out there watching and listening who don't know kind of your origin story or how you got started in the automotive industry, I love kicking off these podcasts with those origin stories. So, Jasen, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
Answered a newspaper ad in 1997 about selling cars. I was a waiter. So a waitress, her boyfriend got a job selling cars. I'm like, how do you do that? Does he have a degree? She's like, no, she just applied. So I tried to do the same thing. And so by 1998, I was selling cars, but by 6 months into that, which rolled in about 1998, I actually started selling cars off the internet. So in the late 90s,
that's early, yeah.
Late 90s, early 2000s, I had to sell cars off the internet. I didn't take any ups, and but I did do that for a while, So I got to grow up in the infancy of the internet. We believed it was going to be the future. So I'm used to the days where people are, going dealership to dealership, and I also started with the internet. And did that for about 8 years and ran internet departments for Dodge dealer groups, GSM independent lots, and things like that. And I got introduced to a gentleman named Dale Pollack who created vAuto back in 2005.
Yeah, I think I heard about that product.
Yeah, but it wasn't even vAuto yet. It was in Power Auto. And so he knew that internet and used cars kind of go hand in hand. And I was one of the first employees that he hired to bring on and to start growing it. And after about a year, Power Auto turned into what we call vAuto. Because Power Auto is scoring cars on how you owned it to wholesale. And then we realized, well, it's a matter of what you can retail it for.
Exactly.
So did that for 8 years, director of the Eastern region for my last role there, and then started Lot Pop about 8 years ago. Because again, inventory management is process management, no different than internet management was.
For sure.
And now with Lot Pop, we're kind of integrating kind of both strategies. You got to manage your lot, which is your cars and your people. So we're starting to combine inventory data out of the vAutos or the Max Digitals, the VinQs of the world. We grab the CRM data and start combining it and allow them to kind of work together.
Pushing the information together.
Yeah.
I mean, think of it like every good sports team in the world bases all their efforts, their results, their training, their coaching, all in the data that they're looking at. And I think as an industry, over the last 10 years, I think we've actually gotten better, a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
I think 10 years ago, there were still dealerships out there that didn't trust the data. They were like, no, I don't believe that's what it is. No, I know my customer. Yeah. That doesn't know it's my customer. I do, right? But that's changed, and now I'm seeing kind of this, let's call it this new generation of general managers and even dealer principals, all right? They're looking at how they're going to attribute their data, but also capitalize on the data, sometimes before they even open the doors of their dealerships.
Well, I think it's the, again, when I started in the early or late 90s, early 2000s, is I think those are the people that become GMs now, the people that actually been in the internet departments, right?
Yes.
They're not, so I think that's, and especially when I did, the whole redheaded stepchild, we were beat to death and had to prove our value, because back then they weren't saying, hey, we got a 50 grand advertising budget, let's take 10 of that and put it toward internet. No, it was, we still got a 50 grand budget, but we'll try 5 or 10 grand at the internet. And we had to defend that 5 or 10 grand being, and we could track how many leads and appointments and all this, and we still got beat up all the time, but yet they'd run a 10 grand newspaper ad and can't tell where, so I think the analytics and the data driven mindset now is due to people that came from the internet department.
And that I came from the same thing. I was the same thing. Early 2000s. All right, they called me director of internet operations, because they didn't actually have any other better. And remember back in the day, there was like 15 different titles for that internet person.
Well,
right?
did you ever have them come and ask you about their printer? I'm like, I don't know about printers.
Yes, I would get crap like that all the
You're
time.
in the internet department. I'm like, I don't know printers.
How do I send this email? I'm having a hard time doing it. I'm like, why am I that person that's going to? But you were that techie person.
I'm not IT.
And at the dealership,
I'm just calling and emailing people. I'm selling cars.
You know what I've seen though in the last 24 months is even a bigger push towards data, and I would say maybe another level of evolution to the mindset around data. Really, really progressive dealers, maybe because they have a little more time on their hands, right? There's not as many cars, we're in an inventory shortage, so they're focusing so much on every single transaction and just trying to twist every ounce of opportunity of everything that comes through the door. There's that group, and there's still the group that's kind of falling behind. I'm curious to what, from your perspective, how do you think the last 24 months has kind of affected that data mindset?
Well, it's good and bad. I think digital retailing has caused a lot of that, which this whole COVID thing, like I said, it kind of good and bad. It forced dealers to be better at digital retailing. I think they dabbled in it and didn't fully commit, but they kind of got forced into that mindset of doing that. And the other thing I think it forced them, they realized they didn't have to carry 150 cars to sell 75.
Yes.
So they became more efficient, but with that efficiency, again, you have to pay attention to. You had wiggle room. We had 150 cars selling 75. Right now, you don't have any wiggle room. You got to push 100 out, no matter how many you have. And so, you had to maximize everything.
You had enough opportunities coming in that you can swing the bat, and if you connected 30% of the time, well, you're still making money, you're still covering the bills.
Exactly.
But that's not the case. You have dealerships out there that are running 40% closing ratios, 50% closing ratios, 55, 60% closing ratios. They're taking every opportunity and really looking at it and how they can capitalize that. But I still think there are many strategies that need to be kind of put in place. We're talking about the internet department, and I feel, before the internet department, you had your BDC and you had your sales team, and they're all kind of these separate islands with, minimal communication. Now I'm kind of seeing like everything kind of start to kind of mold together. Do you think that's what the next evolution?
Yeah, so that's what we're working on. We've come up with Lot Walk, but because I was saying, the CRMs, our CRMs are good at lead management, but they're not really talking about cars. And then you talk about inventory management tools, like again, the Viatos of the world, VinQ, Mac Digital, whatever. They're good at inventory management, car management. They don't talk really about the leads, but yet we show up every day to sell cars and greet people. And so, how these two tools don't talk. Now, some merge together, Vin Solutions, Viatos, kind of the same sister company, but they both have their own agenda, right? So they work with each other. But when we start combining these two data points and going about analytics, closing percentage was one of those metrics that we always tracked. For 20 years, what's our closing percentage? What's his closing percentage? What's her closing? What's AutoTrader, Cars.com?
Yeah, what's this leads worth?
And once we started combining inventory with the lead management, I realized closing percentage isn't that one all be all metric to go to.
100%.
I'll give you an example. We were talking about this earlier. We did a case study. We did a bunch of dealers. We pulled the data out and we compared active leads. So these are 60-day-old leads that they're still supposed to be calling and emailing.
Yes.
And of those 60-day-old leads, 62% on average, some guys as high as 80%, but 62% of their current leads were on sold cars. So I tell dealers, I said, imagine, here's the, if you can't wrap your head around that.
Talk about lead waste, right?
Well, because all of a sudden, if you had 100 leads, 60 of them, let's just round it down to 60, you can't sell a car to at least the one they wanted today. You got 4 left. Now, if you close 10% of those, you're at a 4% closing percentage in your CRM, and they're going to say you suck. In reality, it had to do with the cars missing. And I said, if you can't wrap your head around that, just imagine 10 people walking into your showroom floor right now.
Yep.
You got to take 6 of them, put them over here. Take these 4, because you could sell them and demo a car today. These other 6, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell them the car's sold, turn around and walk away? Or do you actually slow them down, see if they're open to other makes and models, and pull up another car?
Possibly do a pre-order, reservation, something.
And we're not doing that in the CRM.
No,
and it's
we just give up.
Hundreds and hundreds of leads.
Yes.
I have one dealer who has 120 leads to sell 60 active cars. 60 cars in stock, 120 leads. So if he sells everything today, there's 60 leads left. Now, if I go look at his leads on sold cars, he has over 300. So he has 500 active leads to sell 60 cars to. But what can we do? And here's another metric.
Sounds like a marketing problem too.
Almost half the leads, 47%, almost half, are on only 10% of the inventory. So these cars that are hard to get, the low mileage. So now we got 10% of our inventory getting half our leads. That means 90% are splitting the other half. So a lot of the cars aren't getting activity. So why can't we take some of these 6 that we got to push to the side, say, are you open other, and put them onto these cars? And try to switch them within the CRM. You got to maximize every opportunity, like what we're talking about.
But Jason, that takes more work.
Yeah.
From a salesperson's perspective, look, there are amazing salespeople out there. There really are, and they do this. They do exactly what you're talking about. Okay, customer comes in. There's something about that vehicle. They're going to try to match it to another vehicle, some similarities, right? But that's not the norm, right? The norm is, well, we don't have it in stock, boss.
Or they deal with the low-hanging fruit. The guys call an email and come back. They can set an appointment. The car's in stock. The other ones, because a lot of dealers are short-staffed and they don't have enough people, and so a lot of times that's all they can.
So I'm curious. Is this a training problem? Is this a coaching problem? Is this a tech problem?
A little bit about it's a tech problem. I mean, again, we're trying to solve that solution. We'll have those leads. Of those 300, there's about 150 we can switch. We have what we call switch leads. Here's a lead, and they want it this F-150. There's other similar large pickup trucks at the same price point. There's 4 of them that you can switch them to. So one, again, the CRMs really don't talk that way. The inventory tool, again, doesn't talk to leads. So we're trying to solve that problem, but also it's getting them to put their head around it and realize there's other opportunities there than just the person that called you back to schedule an appointment. So it's a little bit of both. But it's just, again, it's a little frustrating on my end. Like I said, I don't know why CRMs aren't doing this. But
well, I mean, when I think, okay, so here's what I think with the CRM, right? I think with CRM, it's customer relationship management. But to me, in my head, it implies that it's a customer. So therefore, a transaction has happened. They're my customer. And that's the way I've always looked at a CRM. It's like, after they become my customer, how do I continue to manage them as my customer? And you see, then you have the lead management softwares that have come out. Okay, now I can get into that model, right? Because I do need to nurture this lead, engage in this conversation to get them to become a customer. But even those have started to kind of bleed out. Now I've kind of started to see kind of this, almost this new little section that started to pop up where they're like engagement tools. And I'm like, now I'm digging it, right? You know, and it's like, when I think of like engagement tools, like everybody knows live chat. Okay. 10 years ago, I saw live chat, probably 10, 15 years ago, I saw live chat, and I was like, oh yes, live chat. We're finally going to have a boom to boom, all right, immediate connection and be able to have meaningful conversation, all right, and get them down through that funnel a lot faster. And then of course, as the industry, we screwed it up and we turned live chat into just a lead generation product. Well, just give me your name and phone number and just all that stuff. But I think that's kind of the key of solving that is just that immediate connection and continued engagement, but meaningful engagement. I read through a lot. You read through a lot of lead response. I mean, how meaningful is some of it?
Well, and a lot of it's automated. And my point is, I mean, again, you get a 30-day lead, and the car that they're interested sold 2 weeks ago. The customer probably already came back because they're, maybe I'll check it out this weekend. They go to the site, it's not there. In the meantime, my CRM set up to say, hey, at day 30, send this email. Hey, it's been about a month since you inquired about the 2018 F-150. Wonder if you're still in the market. And there's a time. And so that email is going out on a car that's sold, and the customer knows it, and you look like an idiot, you know? And so, you know, again, that's where you got to take control of that data and find a switch, reach out to the customer and tell them, hey, sorry, that car's sold. As you know, we advertise our price aggressively. They tend to turn quick. We do have other opportunities or the other makes and models. If so, I have this, you know, I know it's not an F-150. I got a Sierra. I got this. I got that. And then see if we can hook them somewhere. But and then put them down a different funnel.
Yes.
The car sold funnel and email them about and trying to get their trade in. The trade information. Are you trying to trade in a vehicle? Because we also can maybe help you there, you know, and
maybe even work to connect the dots between other customers there.
Don't at day 50 send them another email about that 18 F-150 that sold and said, hey, you know, just touch your base one more time. And so it's. But again, going back to your point, it's a lot of work.
Well, I like this sold lead sold lead strategy, right? So leads coming in on sold units, sold vehicle, whatever you want to call it, right? But I wanted to have a little deeper in that because I think that's super cool. And I think that's something that people can kind of wrap their heads around. Like, but to your point, 100%, I mean, there's so many of these leads that are just waste. They'd almost just kind of get thrown in the bin and we don't do anything with them. I know you've worked with a lot of dealerships and you've seen some great strategies and maybe it's not so great strategies. What is a good, let's call it dead lead strategy? Is that what I'm looking at? Or sold vehicle lead strategy? Like what would that look like?
Well, again, I you know, that first email going out, to be blunt and honest, the subject line, in case they don't read it, would just say the 2018 F-150 sold, now what? Question mark. and then that's my subject line. And then again, the email is going to say, that vehicle's no longer available. Obviously, you're going to, if you're acquiring a truck, you're going to have to buy something else. So you open other makes and models, other colors, and give them some examples. And not just, I know like I'll call one out. Vent Solutions does a decent job at this, to where you can create an email template that says insert similar vehicles.
Yes.
The problem with that, it's going to pick trucks. So it might send them an F350 when they're interested in an F150. Or if it runs out of trucks, it picks your oldest car, and that might be a Malibu, and so you're sending them an F350 and a Malibu when they were interested in an F1. So you're just going to have to take the reins on yourself. And they might improve that. There might be another CRM that does a better job at that.
Sure.
I'm not sure. But, I know some pretty good CRMs that don't do that, and or do a decent job at it, but could do better. But to your point, it's a lot of work. And
yes.
Some dealerships are short-staffed or young-staffed, where they're not
But is it a lot of work? I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, am I spending another 30, 45 minutes a day kind of just, going through those sold leads, or the vehicle was sold kind of inquiries, and it's trying to identify. I mean, but because what I'm thinking in the back of my head is how much it cost. How much it costs to acquire those leads.
Yeah, 30, 40, 50 bucks a lead or more.
More in some cases, right? So then it's just like, there's just this money that's just sitting there, and
300 of them.
300 of them?
That they're unsold. And here's the other part I bring up, is like, if you're talking to consumers, especially back in the day when I first started, back then hey, what's your budget? Well, they didn't want to tell you. Or what are you looking for? Well, maybe a truck. So anyways, you've got the two key things you need to understand about a consumer. Mm-hmm. What type of vehicle are you interested in, and what budget are you looking? Because you already know they submitted a lead on a Malibu at $20,000. Well, at least they somewhat of an intermediate SUV around $20,000.
Sure.
So, and those are usually, those are golden opportunities. Here's a customer that obviously first reached out to you, interested in buying, and they're interested in an intermediate car around $20,000. What do you got? And so, again, that's pick and choose and actually present them. We do it on the showroom floor time and time again.
That's true. When they're in the showroom, we 100% do that.
But we don't do it in the CRM.
We don't do it in the CRM. And when they're not in front of us, we don't do it.
And I always tried our internet departments when I ran them, is to talk to customers as if they're in front of you. We've seen, the car's here, when, the car's in stock, when can you be here? No, don't talk, or no, the car's sold, sorry, are you interested in something? A lot of times we don't communicate as if they're in front of us. And so a lot of, hey, the car's sold, and that's it. So always just communicate with the customer as they're sitting in front of us. Going back to the point, if they're sitting in front of us in a car that's sold, or a car that they test drove and didn't like, you're going to try to switch them. So all that email communication, all that stuff you want to do, it's treated like it's on the show. Same with the sales managers, or desk managers. If I know they don't have tons of downtime, but if they're trying to find extra deals, how many of them are actually going back into the CRM to go look at active leads that we haven't contacted in 14 days on cars still in stock, or the active leads on sold cars that we can maybe switch to? They're relying on the BDC to do that, and these departments don't communicate.
That's what I was thinking. That's the problem. The problem is that we rely on another department to do that. Yeah. And the problem right now is well, I'm selling everything I got. But this is the time where you do develop out that process, and you do put this in play. As an industry, we've always focused on just kind of that 30-day cycle, but this is the time where we break that model. We don't look at the 30-day cycle, right? We start creating that bank, right? We look at the vehicles that have been on order and what those trades are, and we start connecting these dots together. But to your point, it's true. We're not connecting those dots.
Speaking of trades, but going back to, I want to bring up trades in a minute, but that's what we're trying to do. As we're integrating this, I could show the the inventory manager, before you drop the price, hold on, you got 4 leads and 3 of them you haven't contacted 5 days. Here's 5 other switch opportunities. So now use Car Manager, manage these leads. Because if you've seen 3 leads and haven't been contacted in 5 days, you should react to that and work with the department to get them going. Because if somebody was on your showroom floor for 5 or 10 minutes and no one helped them, I said, you'll throw a chair through the window and get upset, get somebody out there, but you let it happen to CRM. So if we can help the inventory manager help work leads, and then you get the lead manager who has leads but on sold cars that can look at inventory, that can help them switch. Now you got internet people helping sell cars. And so if they can communicate. The other thing I realized, again, you talk about trade-ins and trying to acquire cars. Think about it. And we're going to start tracking this. We haven't done it yet, but I know a high percentage of internet leads probably do not have trade information because they
Yep.
go to Auto Trader and all Auto Trader's asking for their name and their email address.
That's it. There's no place to fill in.
Yeah, and as I call or email that customer, sometimes we try to avoid the trading conversation because they're going to want a number, and if you give them the wrong number, they won't show up. But yeah, you need that trade data in there because again, if the car's sold or if the customer's dragging their feet, what if you can bring up conversations about buying their car? So
100%.
I want to look at how many active leads in your CRM that have trade information. And then if you can increase that, let's say 20, 30%, but what if you can increase that to 50, 60, 70%? Now you got to, again, we talk about recycling these active leads and something else. Now you got another way to recycle these leads to try to at least acquire the car they're trying to get rid of. So that's another best practice I would say is try to increase the amount of leads that you have with trade data. So when you need another 2018 Escape for your inventory, go look at your current active leads that you're trying to sell a car to and see if anybody's trading an Escape and work that lead about their car.
100%. Well, you know what I find though, one of the reasons we don't get that information a lot in our communication is because we actually ask them for their trade information. What a horrible term to use, right?
Yeah.
We don't ask about the vehicle they're currently driving right now. No, we ask them about their trade. Like we're implying they're going to, and I don't want. I'm not going to. What do you?
I don't want to trade it.
It's not a trade. It's my car. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah. Never looked at it that way.
I actually was working with a BDC, and I saw that in their script. I said, guys, let's just play with this a little bit. I just want to change this to say instead of asking for their trade, because this is literally the language they were using. I was like, let's just ask them about their vehicle. That's all I want you to collect. All right. And I want to see how many more we can get. It was gigantic.
Wow.
It was gigantic during that initial BDC call, when they were answering whatever questions they had on the vehicle inquiry or something like that.
Sure.
And then we just asked about, well, what are you currently driving right now? Right? They were able to grab that almost 80% of the time.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about that because in concept-wise, customer's mindset is that's another negotiating factor, and I don't want to go down if you bring.
No, but because it
if you just ask me about my car, oh no, I love it. It's got this many miles. It drives great. But I need more room or whatever. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And once that trade information was in there, I mean, look, if instead of having to go to the auction, why would I not just go to this report and just say, look, out of the 500 leads we processed, all right, this is 80% of this is what they're driving right now. Is there anything on there that you need? Oh my gosh, that is the Equinox that I've been looking for. It's right there.
But I found this because I start looking at we dig through leads and I could see a text message to the customer saying, yeah, look forward to seeing you at 2. Don't forget to bring your payoff information on your vehicle. And then I look at the lead and there's no trade-in information. I'm like, my gosh, we know we're doing this and even somebody we're communicating with, there's no data there. Why? Yeah. How is this happening?
It's funny, even in some CRMs, it actually says customer trade information, not customer vehicle information, just customer trade information. I know it's a language thing. Sometimes I get caught up on these little language things, all right? But it does make a big difference.
Oh, it does.
So speaking of data, it's just walking through the exhibit hall here at NADA, and man, I was noticing a lot of companies that I just don't even recognize, right? Yeah. And when I start reading a little bit about them or something like that, I'm like, wow, there are more data driven companies than I've ever seen in the past. All right, what gets you excited? What have you seen so far? All right, or what do you think that's on the horizon in the next 5 years? That's like, okay, yeah, this is where data driven success in not only our operations but in our marketing efforts.
That's a tough question. Because I have more of a fear than anything.
Okay. Well, let's start.
I'll start out. I do like kind of these soft pull type credit stuff where if you could tell
a lot of those.
That's kind of cool. Because again, if you could categorize, and I know some companies do it like grade a lead. Here's a lead that has a good credit based on a soft pull. They're like local. They've done business with it. The car's
scoring
still in
system
stock,
against them.
And these are the leads that work the best. That's going to be kind of cool. My fear is they try to go down the AI road because we deal a lot with used car and inventory management, and there's a lot of information that AI can kind of take over for you, but I don't think the decisions can be done there. And here's why. Until listing sites list cars accurately to build out sheets, the listing data out there is inaccurate.
That's true.
So these inventory tools, whatever one is scraping data off dealer websites and third-party sites, autotradercars.com.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these third-party sites are reliant on dealers entering data, right? And these dealers are power booking cars out inaccurately to make it look like a great deal on some of these sites. Like, I have a picture. It's an XLT. You can tell it's an XLT, and the guy listed it as a Lariat. So either they don't know what they're doing, but it's a great deal, So I think they're power. And so if you think AI is going to be able to tell you how to price a car or where to make adjustments and what price, it's based off inaccurate data. Matter of fact, I reached out to cars.com. I said, man, I think half the cars listed online are wrong. They got a tool called AutoCorrect, which will scan all your listings and compare it to build-out sheets. They found 37% of the cars listed online are inaccurate, missing trims, trans, or major features. Like, hey, that's at a winter package that was worth $3,000. You didn't say nothing about it. So when almost 40% of the inventory is listed inaccurately, and then all this data is coming from this inaccurate listings, so I just don't want dealers to go down that path thinking, that data is going to all that data. And plus, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say gut instinct. It's factual stuff. Like, and I know computers could figure this out once they get the right build-out sheets. But like F-150, 2000 F-150 XLT, I think it's like a 301 versus a 302. I can't remember which one's which, but one has the 18-inch wheels and the small screen and a split bench, and the other one will have the captain's chairs, the big screen,
and the 20-inch wheels.
But most dealers don't list their cars with a 301 or 302 because customers don't know that, right?
100%.
They're going to say captain's chairs, or so 18-inch wheels. Some don't say it, some say do. So, but it's a $15,200 swing.
Yeah,
on what that F-150 XLT is worth. But if we're just looking at F-150 XLTs with this, so you got to have some car instinct, car guy.
100%.
Hey, the blacks work on this, the silvers don't. There's little elements that there's not enough local transaction data to make that accurate. And if you do it, you got to go back 45, 60 days ago, and as fast as this world has moved, 40, 60-day-old data is worthless.
100%.
So,
especially right now.
Again, a lot of exciting stuff. A lot of data out there. I'm just afraid that I don't want dealers, and I don't think they do want to, but going down that AI, you got to mix them and know the balance, at least for now. Until one of these.
How about I want to go down kind of the scoring direction because I like how you're going there, and I'm seeing more of that, right? But I'm seeing more attribution to the sell, meaning we're getting much better about measuring all the efforts that are kind of required to actually get the deal done. For the longest time, a CRM would give you a report based on leads and then how many you closed. It's like, hold on, there are like 6 or 7 different steps in there that I had to go through before I get to that. All right. I feel like dealers have kind of embraced that, but some of the tech is just still a little behind. But I think there's a big opportunity there.
2 examples on that. CRMs with private party acquisitions or trying to acquire cars. Well, you can't. If a lead comes in from Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer or whatever, right? Well, if you actually buy their car, how do you mark it in the CRM? You can't mark it as sold as a closed deal because you bought their trade. You didn't sell them nothing, so it don't count in your closing percentage. So the CRMs haven't really grasped that. There's
a lot of movement. There's still
haven't
work
done that.
to be done there yet.
And then the other thing, I came from a subprime market, and there was a difference, and I tracked it manually, was sold versus delivered. Because I could sell a customer.
100%. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it delivered.
Yeah, because they signed the buyer's orders in the credit app.
That's a really good point.
As soon as I ran the credit, they scored a 300 and need a $5,000. And so I couldn't mark them sold, but my internet guy did his job, got him in. We sold the customer. Auto Trader, whoever sent us the lead, give us a buying customer. They did their job, but yet the CRM is going to tell you, no, you suck. So I tracked sold versus delivered manually because I'd have one guy sell 15 but deliver 7, and he's getting yelled at for not performing well. I'm like, hold on, he did his job. He got 80 leads, he got 15 sold.
Exactly.
It's not my fault the F&I department couldn't put these deals together. And so again, there's a little bit missing.
It's getting there. It's getting there. I know we're at the tail end of our time today, but I still think there's a lot to discuss about some of the points that we brought up today. For everyone out there that's watching and listening, who maybe want to connect with you and maybe even continue some of this conversation, what's the best way to connect with you?
The letter J, Rice at lotpop.com, Facebook, Instagram, I guess Instagram, LinkedIn, but again, Jason with an E, and I'm out there all over the place, always posting stuff.
Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for your time, Jason.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jasen Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.